Viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
And you ain't black.
The first time ever any...
What are you people? We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America with Vin and Sori. We're not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. I think that's the thingamajiggy, right? That's the tagline. Let me see here. All right, I think I fixed this mic problem. Okay. BC in the house. What's going on, BC? Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. Every once in a while, if I have too many friends or things are going too well, I gotta do something that kind of screws it up, and I gotta do things to make people mad at me. Now, that's all said tongue in cheek for the most part. So we'll be dealing with it. I'm looking at TYT right now. They got something on Joe Rogan. Hold on, let me see this real quick. What's up with Joe Rogan? Rogan claims he rejected Trump as a podcast guest. Okay. Otter in the house. What's up, everybody? Don't worry about it, guys. If you're going to miss this show, I wouldn't be that upset about it because, to be honest with you, I am certain I'm going to make everybody angry on this show. And that's okay. In my view, as the scripture says, the wounds of a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. And dear listener, I don't know what I am relative to progressives, whether I am viewed as an ally or whatever. To be quite frank with you, I don't really care about titles in that respect. But I do consider myself at least friendly or sympathetic to many progressive causes. And obviously, I'm one of those guys that got, I don't want to say blue-pilled or converted, whatever you want to call it, to give progressivism a chance due to the big homie Bernie Sanders. Now, once I get everything set up, we will take off, and it's gonna be a doozy. And there's really not much I can do about it because the fact of the matter is we're at a situation now, in my view, where it's critical mass and people need to know the truth as I see it in my view. Now, other people can disagree with that, and that's okay. That's why we have the option to call in. As you can see there on the floating banner, it says call in if you disagree. I haven't said anything yet, so you don't really have a reason to call in yet, but I will say something soon. So this thing is telling me that the awesome thumbnail that I created is too big for the thingamajiggy, so that's pretty frustrating. We'll figure that situation out later. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to get into it. I've done a lot of analysis and thought and had conversations with people. And I have come to the conclusion that progressivism, as we know it, and please let me know if my mic is operating correctly. But progressivism, as we know it, dear listener, I'm not going to say it's dead. I think progressivism is too young. Corey says, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that your definition of progressive might be a bit skewed. Okay, that's very possible. My understanding of progressives are folks like Bernard Sanders, early AOC, Jimmy Dore, that type of situation. But I'm not really going to, get into the minutia of what the definitions are, yada, yada, yada. Like I said, you guys can call in if you disagree with what I'm about to say. Okay. Having said that, here we go. Top 3 reasons progressives are going to lose for the next decade. My brother, let's see. I don't see the Democrats as progressive, so this is about that. I don't know. But I mean, shit, the American system doesn't really allow for parties to push that way, and the Democratic Party doesn't want to move left. Yeah. I mean, we can blame the Democrats. I don't believe the Democratic Party is the problem for progressives. I don't believe the Republican Party is a problem for progressives. I think progressives are the problem for progressives. And I will demonstrate that very, very quickly. Okay, so top 3 reasons that progressives are going to lose routinely for the next decade. Exhibit A, our good friend Bette Midler. Now, Bette Midler recently posted something, and it sparked controversy. Here is, okay, Ian says, Vin, could you give a definition of progressive? Not trying to trap you in minutiae. Okay, a progressive is somebody that, for example, is to the left of the Republican Democratic Party. My view currently is that the Republicans and the Democrats are essentially the same party, different cast of characters, but essentially the same party. As our good friend and the president, and I honor him as such, Mr. Joe Biden told all those people on Wall Street, nothing's really going to change. Or as Mr. Obama said in that 60 Minutes interview, I was essentially a Republican. And progressivism to me is a worker-oriented, compassion-driven political outfit that wants to do things like socialize healthcare, major reforms, particularly with the environment, et cetera, et cetera. Mostly millennial. Obviously, main figurehead would be Bernie Sanders, et cetera. Okay, so that to me is a progressive. Well, not anyone to the left of the American system, because like I said, there seems to be a couple definitional issues that are important to progressives. Namely, what the church used to call mercy missions, hospitals, healthcare, that kind of thing. Not having politicians beholden to big money and all the rest of it. Okay, that's what I believe about progressives. If it's not a good definition, that's okay. Now, here we go. Issue number 1 for why progressives are going to lose for the next 10 years. Number 1. The curious case of Bette Midler. Bette Midler got herself in trouble because she posted the following tweet. Women of the world, we are being stripped of our rights over our bodies, our lives, and even our name. Obviously, it's a reference to abortion. But what do you mean, Miss Midler? What do you mean, even our name? They don't call us women anymore. They call us birthing people or menstruators and even people with vaginas. Don't let them erase you. Every human on earth owes you. So this is Bette Midler, who's I think in her 60s or 70s. And she's posting on Twitter. And she is saying that she resents the fact that now, because of the emergence of a very small group of people in the LGBT community, now the very identity of womanhood is something that's being thrown away. And a lot of women resent that. A lot of them do. But they're not able to say it publicly because they're afraid of the backlash. And the backlash we've already demonstrated. Well, I'll show you in a second how the backlash has affected Miss Midler. That statement was controversial. But I want you to notice something, dear listener. When I took a screenshot of this yesterday, there were 17,000 retweets, okay? 8,000, let's say 9,000 quote tweets, and 98,000 likes. 98,000 likes, but only 17 retweets. You know what that tells me? That a bunch of people agreed with Bette Midler, but they were not brave enough to post it because they didn't want to deal with the fallout. And this right here is definitional to me as to why progressives are going to lose and lose badly for the next 10 years until progressives grow up and realize where they are. Only 17% of those folks retweeted it, but that basically means 82% of the folks heartily agreed with it, but didn't retweet it. And I keep trying to tell you guys about the Trump effect, where people will publicly say one thing, but then when they're in the midst of their voting, the voting anonymous booth, they do another thing. So here you have Bette Midler, and apparently what she said resonated with a lot of women, 98 to the tune of 98,000 likes. It's well over 100 now, I am certain. I'm certain. Bette Midler also shared a Photoshop of SCOTUS as Muslims, but that's another convo. No, it's not another convo, because I've heard all of you guys say that the ruling to send Roe v. Wade back to the states to decide is a form of Christian Sharia. So that's in play. Of course, if they dress them up as priests and things like that, I'm not sure, Rig, that you'd be upset. But be that as it may. So there we go. We're being stripped of our rights. Now watch Riv. Here's River. Let me get this straight. Because progressives support trans people, we're going to lose. That should be the strategy there. Perhaps do as the LGB Alliance says we shouldn't drop the T. No. What you should do first, River, is listen. Okay? And then maybe we can talk afterwards. This woman, all she said was women are feeling that they're being erased with this trans stuff, guys. Because now, instead of saying women or mothers, that's being stripped away and generalized and genericized. They don't like that. Now, what's really interesting is this response. Who's the they that are changing these terms? That's libs of TikTok, which we will talk about very soon here. Who is the they? Well, the they are not nasty right-wing conservative men who are erasing women. It is the folks on the progressive side who are doing this. And the libs of TikTok lady jumped on it immediately. She says, who are the they? Now watch this response from these folks. This response right here is reason number 8 million why progressives are going to continuously lose. Hold on. Let me not do that one. It is unbelievable stuff. Now, Bette Midler got massive backlash. One guy said, if the libs of TikTok person is agreeing with you, maybe you're wrong. That's what they said. If the libs of TikTok person's agreeing with you, maybe you're on the wrong side. That's true. Maybe Bette Midler's on the wrong side. Or it could be that your movement has become so extreme that regular women feel the way Bette Midler feels, and the only person brave enough to say it is the libs of TikTok person. The way that the community is interacting with libs of TikTok is absolutely mind-blowing to me. So obviously there is a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth. How dare she say this, even though she's a woman? Women apparently don't get to say that they're not good with this. Women don't get to say that they're not good with being erased. I had a person tell me a couple days ago, hey, tough luck for the women if they're sexually assaulted and then they see somebody with a 5 o'clock shadow in their bathroom. Tough luck. They just have to deal with it. I'm sorry, but you LGBT folks, God bless you, but you're not having a positive effect emotionally on the women in this country. Those are just facts. Okay, well, you right-winger, Ving, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Here's Bette Midler's response. Now, I thought Bette Midler was going to hand out the regular disingenuous, I'm sorry, yada, yada, yada. But shout out to Bette Midler. She stood her ground. She says, guys, it was about the same old shit all women have been putting up with since the caveman days. Even then, men got top billing. But seriously, folks, if anyone wants to read that tweet and thinks I have anything but love for marginalized people, go Wikipedia and type my name. I've fought for marginalized people for as long as I can remember. Still, if you want to dismiss my 60 years of proven love and concern over a tweet that accidentally angered the very people I have always supported, so be it. But the truth is, democracy is slipping through our fingers. I'm all in on trying to save democracy for all people. We must unite because in case you haven't been paying attention, divided, we will definitely fall. Good for you, Bet. Good. This woman has been one of your staunchest allies. But she's also a woman who feels they're being erased by the folks in your movement. I keep trying to tell you guys, you are a super minority in this country. That's what she said. Now, what is she referring to? Here is what she was actually referring to. It was a piece written by the New York Times. I don't know if the New York Times is maybe that's a right-wing outlet. I don't know. But this is what she was referring to. And reading this article is what sparked this tweet. She says, the far right and the far left agree on one thing. Women don't count. That's what she was referring to. That's the article that sparked that tweet. So you know what this tells me? This tells me that for a significant portion of people in the United States of America, there is resentment growing, particularly among women, particularly among white women, that their very femininity, the very essence of who they are, is being dissolved and diluted into this sort of massive politically correct phrasing, and they don't like it. Now, what would a political strategist do upon hearing this information? What would a person who thinks strategically do if you see something like this? Well, what you would do is say, hey guys, we need to compare notes and we need to adjust and augment our strategy so that women do not feel like they're being replaced by us, because they will either be quiet and be intimidated into silence, like what happened with the girl from Libs of TikTok where they doxed her. So this is the reaction. We're going to dox you. We're going to do XYZ thing to you. How dare you say something that offends me? Not realizing that you've also been extremely offensive to a lot of women, and a lot of women are having a serious issue with this, but they won't tell you because they're scared to death. And the fact of the matter is, believe what you want, but women generally avoid conflict. They're ranked very high in agreeableness. So they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. You're only going to find out at the voting booth, dear listener. Thank you for calling things as you see them and for speaking the truth. We don't have to agree on everything. Just call balls and strikes. Correct. Now here's Corey. I think a political strategist would create a false dichotomy by comparing the far left and the far right. That's a political gaslighting technique brought to you by the same paper that picked sides in the last few elections. That's fine. You can believe that if you want. You can believe that's one way of looking at it. The way I would look at it is, what is my goal? My goal is I want to solidify rights for my people. Okay, well, then if that's the case, and I'm hearing that there's a lot of women who've got this seething resentment, and by the way, somebody brought up J.K. Rowling. We'll talk about that. If there are women, if there's enough women to generate a New York Times article about this topic, then what I would do as being part of a super minority is I would augment my style. That's what I would do. I would change it. We would go back and figure out this naming convention stuff and all the rest of it so that women don't feel like they're being deleted from society. Okay? That's what I would do if I was a political strategist. Now, Corey, if you want to say it's irrational what the New York Times did, or it's irrational what Bette Midler said, that's okay. That's completely fine. But whether or not the syllogism was perfect in the New York Times article is irrelevant to whether or not people are going to be influenced and vote by it. That's the issue. Guys, the issue is we live in a democracy. And in a democracy, especially if you're a minority, you have got to convince people that are hostile to you that you are not a threat to them. But instead, anytime a woman pokes her head up and says, yo, I'm not really cool with this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What's going on here? I don't want my daughter in the bathroom with a grown man. I don't want my daughter losing a scholarship. I'm not a fan of the Leah Thomas thing. There's millions of people that think that way. And your response is to dox these people, cancel them, call them all types of crazy names. I saw a Harry Potter special. They were bringing the kids back and all the rest of it. They completely left J.K. Rowling out of it. Okay. If you think that that's good strategy and that's going to engender people to vote for you, go for it. While I disagree with Bet's statement, I can't help but agree with you on how it was dealt with. They should be responded to in good faith and kindness. Minds aren't changed with vitriol, but reason. And Ian, what's funny is you really can't say whether or not you agree with Bette Midler's statement, and neither can I, because none of us are women. I don't know what the inner experience of women is in light of the trans takeover of whatever. I don't know how they feel about it, but this tells me that enough of them feel about it to write something on it. And believe what you want. Okay, so that is Exhibit A. Vin, how much of the birthing person's discourse is generated by trans people versus their non-trans allies? Irrelevant. It would be irrelevant to me. I don't care. It doesn't matter who generated the terminology. What matters is the effect the terminology is having on the electorate that we need to get legislation passed. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. Good point, though. But again, let me point out to you, there were 17,000 retweets of that post, but 98,000 likes. That means it's massively significant. Massively significant. Here's Michelle. Vin just spoke what I have been feeling. I don't want my daughter, who will turn a year old in November, in a bathroom when she grows up with a man. Now, Michelle's my little sister, just gave birth recently to a pretty beautiful little kid. And she's saying, I don't want my daughter in a bathroom with a biological male. Now, you call her you can call her whatever you want. She's a young girl. She's a young girl, has a young child of her own, and God knows what was in her background. But let's go ahead and call all those women TERFs and say they're crazy and all. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. And when all this shit goes back to the states and it's time to vote, let's see how that turns out. Okay, so number one, completely lambasting one of your own allies. One of your own people. Completely, I entirely disagree with you on the J.K. Rowling. Leaving her out of the arena is the right thing to do. Yeah, I think that's fucking horrible that they did that to her. It's her book, and she's a feminist. And I'm sorry, Ian, but there are millions of feminists who agree with J.K. Rowling. Millions. And I'm telling you that there is going to be vengeance in the voting booth for that. Trust me. Okay. Second plank. Hold on. Let me take care of Riv and then we'll go. What should trans people do? I'm seriously curious about the bathroom thing. Let's say we keep trans women in the men's bathroom and trans men in the women's room. What then? Well, look, the bathroom thing is an offhanded thing. What I'm talking about right now is is what your crew does to anybody that voices disagreement with your movement. That's what we're talking about. River, I'm not sure if you have children, but if you don't have children, you're really, honestly, you don't understand. If you don't have kids, you don't understand. So this is one of the problems, Riv, is that we're talking about grown adults and we're weighing the feelings of grown adults over and against the safety of children and the feelings of women. All of that gets pushed to the side for this one group of people. And whether you think that's right or wrong, that's okay. But in a democracy, it's going to get taken out on you in the voting booth. Okay, so number one, going after lifelong allies with your ridiculous purity tests. Number two, here's the second reason that progressives are going to lose and lose horribly in not only 2024, but for a very, 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 very long time. Watch this. and this is actually, in my mind, pretty sad, because if you want to talk about missed opportunity, this has got to be one of the biggest missed opportunities I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, you know, people can feel however they want to feel about what I'm about to show you guys, but it is important. And like I said, I'm not here on purpose to piss people off or hurt anybody's feelings, but I am sounding the alarm. And if you guys don't want to take my advice, that is completely okay. Here is a couple clips of Joe.
All right, y'all. So Joe Rogan is in
Joe
the news.
Rogan. Now watch this, guys. Watch this. This is going to be really, really fascinating.
That's why I think it's important, because it highlights the thing that Trump's doing. He's the wife of these organizations.
Okay, now Kyle Kalinske did a little thingy about Joe Rogan, right? Now watch this selection. All these were around the 2018 to 2020. These clips that you're about to
The
see.
right thing for DeSantis seems to be turning his back on Floridians and protecting the bottom line of massive corporations.
See, this is what guys like DeSantis do. They lean into culture war stuff, and then they're just standard, run-of-the-mill, corrupt politicians serving corporations and screwing working people.
Right. And you guys, progressive Kyle Kalinske, you guys keep giving them materials for the culture war stuff. Like your buddies at Twitter with Jordan Peterson, which we will talk about in a second. Now watch this clip, dear listener.
Now, I show you all that. Remember, this Joe Rogan, this is the same Joe Rogan that we're talking about. Look at this. Remember this, guys? Let me make sure it's on 1.25. Look at this.
I really believe if Michelle Obama runs, she wins.
She's good.
She's great. She's the wife of the best president that we have had in our lifetime. I've never voted right wing in my life. I consider universal basic income a really good idea. I want free college education. Take it easy. Hello, Bernie.
How are you, Joe?
Wonderful. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I like Tulsi and I like Bernie. That's it.
Oh, yeah?
Everybody else can eat shit.
Look at you, fucking progressive.
Yeah. I think I'll probably vote for Bernie. I think he's looking out for the interests of the working people. And I think he wants people to have a better life and do better. And I'm all for that. And if that means I have to pay more in tax, like people think, oh, you're a socialist. I've heard people say that. Oh, you're a fucking socialist, bro. Like, first of all, he's not even a socialist. He's a democratic socialist. It's a different thing. I would like to spend more in taxes if they could fix inner city communities and take these poor neighborhoods and throw a fuckload of money. Spend more, you fucking Republican piece of shit. 87% of scientists said that human activity is driving global warming. I'm very pro-choice. I'm very women's rights, civil rights, gay rights, trans rights. I'm even universal health care. Obviously, this protected status is driving me crazy. This thing that Trump's doing with children that were born in other countries and then brought over here as children, and then they're talking about deporting them. That drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's scary.
And the hard right version of that is despicable. These people that I see online, why didn't they apply for citizenship? Oh, who knows? Maybe because they're fucking 13. I don't give a fuck if they broke the law. You don't take parents and kids and separate them. You just fucking don't. You know Alonzo? No, who's that? A funny comedian. Yeah. He goes, not all Donald Trump supporters are racist, but all racists are Donald Trump supporters.
He definitely awakened that side.
But the January 6th thing is important.
See, it is important,
And
but is it the 6 months later? It should be the ruling number one conversation of the journalists?
I think it's really important. And one of the reasons why I think it's important, because it highlights the reasons why a guy like Donald Trump is so fucking dangerous, is because a guy can incite a bunch of morons to do something really fucking stupid. But as far as trans people, some trans people listening to this, I got nothing but love for you. For everybody. And in fact, Eddie Izzard is one of my all-time favorite guests.
Oh, I love Izzard.
The right-wing thing is just an easy way to dismiss me, because I'm not right-wing. I can't recommend your book, Race Matters, enough.
Okay.
So there you have it. This is the same.
Now Kyle Kalinski's like, what happened to that Joe Rogan? What happened to that Joe Rogan? Because recently, Joe Rogan just gave a pretty extended, full-throated support to Ron DeSantis. And if you think that Trump was bad for trans people, if you think Trump was bad on LGBT issues, wait till you get a load of Ron DeSantis. Wait till you get a load of Ron DeSantis, which is very possible to happen, dear listener. Now, what happened? Like I said, all those clips were taken anywhere between 2018 and 2020. What happened? How did Joe Rogan go from saying all that to saying he now endorses Ron DeSantis? Well, let me help you. Let me help you, dear listener. Let me help you. Here's reason number 2. Progressives are going to fail and fail miserably and fail consistently. You just wait, because this right here, you will not believe. And I don't know if you guys remember what happened during that entire situation, but your brother does. I have the memory of an elephant, bless God. Do you guys remember AOC was stumping hardcore for the big homie Bernie Sanders? You guys remember that? She was going all around the world promoting Bernieism, Bernie. You guys remember that? AOC backed away from the Sanders campaign after the Joe Rogan endorsement. Joe Rogan, who literally has the #1 podcast in the world, who is literally the shtick, the everyman shtick, highly influential, especially to the demographic that we're talking about here. Highly influential to cis white men who dominate the country and dominate the electorate. Joe Rogan gets on there and says he loves his trans people, yada, 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 yada. But AOC and a bunch of you silly millennial progressives said we cannot support Bernie Sanders anymore because of a Joe Rogan endorsement. Representative AOC declined multiple pleas from the Bernie Sanders campaign to stump for the Vermont senator's candidacy after the Ohio caucuses. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this. The Ohio caucuses, where Pete Buttigieg came in close second to Bernie Sanders. Dinesh D'Souza should have done a 2000 Mules Democratic primary edition. This guy, Joe Rogan, who has the air of Everyman America, the #1 podcast in the world, the only politician that was running in 2020, aside from Tulsi, that got a hearing, was Bernard Sanders on Joe Rogan's show. And what happened? Did the brilliant minds in the progressive space? Did the brilliant minds in the progressive space say this guy has got access to a large chunk of the electorate? We can snatch. What would happen if a bunch of right-leaning folks who listen to Rogan and say, well, I mean, yeah, universal health care is not really that bad, and I might listen to this Bernie guy. Let me listen to him in the next debate. Let me see what he has to say. Because Joe likes him, and Joe says we're supposed to vote for him. And what did you do? You did this nonsense. You silly people. You don't want to win. Why? Well, a couple years ago, Joe Rogan said some derogatory things about trans people. Joe Rogan was the biggest thing he got in trouble for relative to trans people was there was a fighter named Fallon Fox who's a biological male and jumped into mixed martial art and starting to beat literally the living shit out of the biological women, one of whom he broke their eye socket. Okay? So Joe Rogan, who is obviously knee deep in MMA, was outraged and he said, that's a fucking man that did that. Feel how you want to feel. That incident happened damn near 10 years ago. So Joe Rogan, in a moment of emotion, and I don't want biological men in combat sports. I got 2 daughters. I don't want them going up against a biological man in a combat sport. I've done combat sports my entire life. Would I have said what Joe said? Probably not, because now I have trans friends. But before I had trans friends, who knows? But that is a very rational thing to be upset about. If you love the purity of the sport and you care about the health of the fighters, which Joe does, yeah, I understand why he said what he said. And newsflash, he's right. Biological men should not be competing against biological women, particularly in combat sports. But you know what happened to Joe Rogan when he said that? He got suspended from the UFC. They suspended him for that. So Yeah, I know. He said the N-word in his jokes and blah on his show. I don't care. And you should not care, trans people. Let me explain something to you, LGBT people. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. Okay? The fact of the matter is, left-leaning cis white male here. I'm not going to ride with the people who call me a POS constantly. I'll be okay if the right wins. I'm a white man. Correct. Correct. You consistently, the progressive contingent is consistently spitting in the face of the largest slice of the elective pie. That would be cis white men. They spit in their face constantly. Constantly. So now you got Joe Rogan, who is the endorsement of all endorsements for Bernie Sanders in the 2020 election, which has got had some of the most far-reaching implications, particularly for LGBT people. And here's what we have. What we have is, instead of saying, you know what, if this guy helps get Bernie elected and Bernie can pass legislation that's friendly to us, then we win. Nope. Nope. We're going to be purists. We're going to look at what you said a decade ago. You said that mean thing about Fallon Fox, so now we can't have your endorsement. And AOC, the most influential person in America as far as politics goes, like her or not, decided she was going to stop stumping for Bernie Sanders in protest because of Joe Rogan. Reason number 2 as to why progressives are going to fail for the next 10 years. Unbelievable. Okay, last one. Last reason you guys are going to lose and lose horribly. Libs of TikTok. The LGBT response or non-response to libs of TikTok, to me, is absolutely mind-blowing, confusing, and to be honest with you, I don't get it. I don't get it. But before I talk about Joe Rogan, let me explain something to you. The reason for this failure, I've come to conclude, is that the progressive movement, by and large, is still a movement that's led by cis white males. And cis white males are used to having all the levers of power operate in their favor. And cis white males, as a whole, do not know how to negotiate with levers of power to get what they need, because they've always been in a dominant position in this country. But now the positions that they're taking as progressives are not the dominant position for the power brokers. So instead of doing the hard work of compromise, brilliant strategy, thinking outside of the box, all of their solutions for their opposition are these ham-fisted, draconian actions, getting people deplatformed, shutting down people's businesses, destroying all types of craziness. Because you don't know how to operate from a non-dominant position. That's my working theory. Because otherwise, I don't understand this stuff. Dear listener, Huey Newton from the Black Panthers. There's HBO did a movie on him called Jesus and the Black Messiah. Huey Newton was a Black Panther, Black Power, Marxist. You know what he did? Huey Newton showed up to a skinhead rally. And he went to the skinheads and he says, look, I know you guys hate us. We hate you too. However, you guys are poor white trash and we're poor black trash. And these people are kicking the shit out of both of us. So how about we put our jihad to the side for a little bit, fix these problems, and then once we're done with those motherfuckers, we can go back to hurting each other. The Nazis, the Confederate flag waving rednecks, they looked at each other and they said, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And they started working together. And wouldn't you know it, by the end of the cycle of them working together, a lot of those racists stopped being racist. They stopped. They said, well, we've been on the line with you guys and we're getting the shit kicked out of us just like you are. Maybe we're all the same. And that's the reason, dear listener, that Huey Newton died a very, very early death. Why? Look at Malcolm. Look at Martin. All of us knew that we had to lock arms with white people in order for this shit to work. When Malcolm made his Hajj to Mecca and he came back, he completely changed his style up and said, no, we need to start working with white people. And then not very long after that, he was assassinated. Dr. King worked with a bunch of racist white people. Go read Letter from a Birmingham Jail when he talked about the white moderate, which is the people that he was working with. Dr. King linked armed with racists. Why? Because he knew that in America, since white men are the dominant demographic in this country, especially in the electorate, if you do not convince a large swath of those people to vote with you and to care about your interest, you're not going anywhere. I had somebody tell me yesterday, I said, you guys don't know how to compromise, blah, blah, blah. They said, well, does the right wing have to compromise? I said, no, because the right wing has all the money, the power, and the votes. You are a minority. Understand that. You're a minority. That means that you have to engage in co-belligerence with people that may not necessarily agree with you. Huey Newton can hook up with some Nazi Confederate flag waving rednecks, but AOC can't tolerate Joe Rogan? See, this is a lack of understanding history, and it's the position of a privileged person who thinks that way. I had one of these very beautiful people. I said, no, the Republicans don't need to compromise. You do because you're a minority. And you know what this person said to me? This white person said to me? He said, oh, okay, so there are different rules for different people based on money and power? And I said, that response validates my understanding of why progressives fail. What a ridiculous thing to say. Of course, that's how America works. I don't know if you've watched the news lately, but there's a guy who shot and killed 7 people, led the police on a minor police chase, and then he was able to get arrested without incident. Meanwhile, a black guy unarmed gets pumped full of 60 bullets. Yeah, we're in 2 different Americas. But see, this white dude is so offended at the idea that he has to compromise with people that don't like him that he can't accept that. Well, that's why I said we're doomed for the next decade. You know why? Because we're young. We're young, we're emotional, and we have no understanding about anything. So AOC, it's going to take her 10 years to develop the political instincts that are going to get her what she needs. She doesn't understand that right now. And now she's sitting there doing Pelosi's bidding. Why? Joe Biden's in power. Why? Partly because of you, AOC, and your emotionalistic response and your faux purity relative to Joe Rogan. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Okay. Last but not least, libs of TikTok. Dear listener, where's River? I've asked repeatedly. Hold on. Let me see what question River's asking that's not getting answered. I mean, Riv, just call in, man. If you it's why most LGBT and black activists say to cis white dudes step back and organize instead of operating in front of political activism. Yeah, that's a problem. That's bad. That's bad. You should not tell cis white men to be in the background of your political activism. The cis white men need to be at the front, but the leadership needs to be people. The decision makers don't need to be cis white men. The face needs to be cis white men, but the decision makers can't be because look, they don't have the strategy and they don't have the historical precedent to understand how to operate from the bottom. I'll have you guys remember it was a black trans woman that set off the Stonewall riots, a black trans woman that was born in 1945. So that young lady saw Malcolm, Martin, Huey, etc., Elijah Muhammad, etc., 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 etc. So she knew when it was time. But because cis white males are the dominant group in the electorate, You absolutely want them to be the face of the movement. Absolutely. They absolutely have to be the face of the movement. What about trans people's safety? That's why we talk about this. We get assaulted regularly in bathrooms, especially. Why is our safety so unimportant? Because we're a minority. Okay, River, go ahead and get me the stats of biological trans men who go into the men's bathroom getting assaulted. Get me those stats, River. Biological trans men are getting assaulted in bathrooms. That's why you want bathroom bills. Okay, get me that data. Sorry, River. I'm sorry. Okay, get us the information. Me personally, that's ridiculous to me, but get us the information. We'll see. Now, here's libs of TikTok. Okay? See that kid right there? Fucking believable. And look at what the fuck is going on in the mind of this woman? You see this woman right here? Look at this. These are kids. You got a grown-ass man in his fucking tighty-whities showing his ass to these kids. We're gonna look at some more of these. I'm sorry, but we're gonna look at more of these. Here's a screenshot of naked bikers ride around in front of children at Pride Parade in Seattle. Buck ass naked in front of little kids in a Pride Parade. Okay. All right. Here's another screenshot. Here's a video of Bryce Williams, the drag queen who was charged with 25 counts of child pornography performing for kids. This guy, 25 counts of child porn. Okay. All right. Guys, I don't know who told y'all that this was a good idea, but it's not a good idea. It gets people insanely angry. Here's another one. If you go to the original video, the screen cap says, "Children belong at drag shows." This was from an LGBT person who posted this, and the title at the top was "Children belong in drag shows." No, they don't. No, they don't. Children do not belong at drag shows. This is fucking inappropriate. It's borderline abusive. What is this trend in bringing little children to a drag show? How is that going to help your movement? How is that going to help you? Keep in mind, this woman is posting stuff that people in the community are posting.
If you're a radio listener,
now
or
look at this.
Infowars.com and newswars.com and get
look
the
at this.
nightmare art and a woman.
Look at this. You got an 8-year-old boy
to twerk for everyone as a sexual object.
You got an 8-year-old boy twerking in public in front of men.
TV viewer.
Look, man. A lot of you guys don't have kids, but I'll tell you what. If that was my 8-year-old surrounded by a bunch of dudes watching him do that, so I'm reaching out to my folks and I'm saying, what in the actual fuck is going on? You guys need to put out a statement and distance yourselves completely from these people. You need to repudiate this. Somebody said, should GLAAD post something? Yes. Yes. GLAAD should post something. GLAAD should say, this is horrible. We do not believe that children belong at strip shows. We do not believe that grown men should be twerking in their underwear in front of kids. We do not believe that grown adults should be strutting around naked in front of children. And we do not believe that little 8-year-old boys should be twerking surrounded by a bunch of grown-ass men. But the only response I have seen from the community is to dox libs of TikTok. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. Because I don't know if you guys recognize this or not, but it was white women who turned the tide for Donald Trump. So 2 of the 3 issues I have affect white women significantly. They don't like it. It's not a good look. And the fact that GLAAD still to this day has not come out and say we thoroughly repudiate these people is pretty bad. It's horrible optics. You've got Dave Rubin, who's a gay Republican. You've got Tucker Carlson, who has had Jimmy Dore, all types of people. Get a GLAAD representative out there on Tucker and Rubin, and in no uncertain terms, play a couple of videos and say we completely repudiate those people. GLAAD should attempt to take some sort of civil action against some of these folks to distance themselves from those people. But for some reason, there's a hesitancy for them to do that. Now, I had some very well-meaning people say, well, if this was black folks, would you say that? Yes. But of course, again, that's coming from people of privilege. We have to answer for shit black people do all the time. Whether or not it's fair is irrelevant. Whether or not it's fair. See, this is a thing. This is why I'm saying 10 years, because you guys have to grow up. Honestly, you guys have to grow up. Progressives. This is ridiculous. Whining and bitching about whether or not it's fair that GLAAD should come out and say that is irrelevant. What is going to get you votes? What is going to get you votes? And I promise you, regular white women who are at home and they're scrolling through libs of TikTok and they're seeing shit like this, but there's no counterbalance on your side, they're not going to post on Twitter because they know how you guys are. You're going to dox them. You're going to call them hateful. You're trying to get them fired from work, all the rest of it. So they're not going to say anything to you because you have created a false echo chamber where the only people that will ever talk about this topic to you are people that hate you, like libs of TikTok, or your fellow LGBT supporting folks. But there's a giant group of people in the middle that are horrified by this shit and will not say anything to you. They won't say anything to you. The reason they won't say anything to you is because you've intimidated them into silence. Yeah, GLAAD absolutely should get in front of this and disassociate the community from these people. Libs of TikTok is a very coordinated attack. There's a Libs of TikTok video. They end up on Tucker Carlson, and then Ron DeSantis. Where do you think the Don't Say Gay bill came from? Think. Where do you think the Don't Say Gay bill came from? Do you understand? You see how brilliant Libs of TikTok is? These silly people on Twitter, they got rid of Jordan Peterson. We're gonna talk about Jordan Peterson in a second. They got rid of Jordan Peterson, but they can't get rid of Libs of TikTok. Why? Because Libs of TikTok is not violating any of the terms of service. All they're doing is reposting stuff that folks in your community are posting. So Libs of TikTok is doing way more damage to you than Jordan Peterson is. But what is that suburban straight white woman seeing from your community? They're seeing a bunch of this, and they're seeing no anger from your group. The most anger I've seen from LGBT people is against Libs of TikTok herself and not the fucking perverts that are doing that shit around kids. That's a problem. That's a problem. Why are you more mad at her than the fucking subject matter? You're stealing the innocence away from kids. I don't give a fuck if it's gay, straight, whatever. I'm sorry, but there's no straight month where straight people bring kids to heterosexual strip clubs and have them put money in the underwear of the dancers. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. And if it did happen, they would get massacred. You guys do. Now, look, it's not all of you guys, obviously. Obviously, it's not all of you guys. But the fact that there is no official... here's Ben. The subject matter is no worse than what kids see on TV. No, that's bullshit, Ben. I'm sorry. Ben, how many children do you have? If you don't have kids, you don't know what you're talking about. But again, that's some of the problem. That's some of the problem with you guys. Honestly, a lot of you guys don't have kids. So you don't get it. That's why when I say we had a young mother in here say, yeah, I don't want a biological male in the bathroom with my daughter. Somebody who didn't have kids said, well, what about us? Speaking of Jordan Peterson. Okay, Ben, do me a favor. Get me the video. This is Ben. Ben doesn't speak for most people. He doesn't speak for the community. He speaks for himself. You're only mad because queer folk doing it. No, Ben. I would be equally mad if a straight dude took his 8-year-old boy or 8-year-old daughter. If a straight dude took his 8-year-old daughter and put her in the middle of a group of grown men and had her twerking, yeah, I'd have a problem with that guy. I'd have a real problem with that guy. I don't know what shows you're watching, Ben, on TV, but my kids have never watched any shows with little 8-year-old boys twerking in front of grown men. Are you watching shows on TV, Ben, where there's 8-year-old boys twerking in front of grown men? What's the name of the show that you're watching? I love you to death, but let's be real here. Because now we're talking about child abuse. Don't play around with that shit, Ben. Like, it's fun to joke around, but you got to have a line. You got a fucking 8-year-old kid fucking twerking in front of all these fucking corrupt, disgusting people, and nobody had the sense to snatch that kid away. And you think you guys think you guys think that that's okay? Okay. Jordan Peterson. Now we shot this thing, right? I shot this a couple days ago. We're talking about Jordan Peterson. Here's Anna Kasparian commenting on the Jordan Peterson situation, and this is going to be really, really fascinating. Like I said, nobody disrespect Ben. Ben's my man. I love him to death. But holy shit, Ben, you got to have a line, bro.
While women have had their reproductive rights stripped away from them with the federal government.
I know, Anna, I know. You're mad because of the where, not the what. I would be willing to bet your own kids have twerked. Now, again, Ben is my friend offline of this, so don't worry about it. Again, Ben, I am mad because the child was doing it surrounded by a bunch of adults. That's the problem, Ben. There are no shows that my children watch or I watch where that is a regular occurrence. That's sick. It's sick. They abuse that child. That's child abuse. Now, Jordan Peterson. Listen to what so Jordan Peterson, he said that about Paige. That's the person's last name. I forgot what the first name is, so whatever. Now watch this interaction with Anna.
Them and take away their rights. That being said, I don't think that it should be suspension just to say the dead name. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's hard to avoid. You know.
Here it is. Here's Left Side New. Why aren't GOP snowflakes triggered by people bringing their kids to a Nicki Minaj concert? Because they're in the majority. You're in the minority, so rules are different for you. We're talking about what is going to get people elected. Secondly, there are no boys, there are no little children twerking in front of a circle of grown adults at a Nicki Minaj concert. So to try to make a comparison to that is fucking ridiculous.
You know, when you're talking about, for example, Caitlyn Jenner, when she was in the Olympics, what are you supposed to call her? So
I see what you're saying. Guru's constitutional rights that are, that is good, okay? He is not some sort of oppressed victim. He has turned this into his grift, and it's been very profitable for him. So what they do, and see, Steven Crowder does it, all these right-wing grifters do it. They intentionally violate the terms of service for an online platform that is not owned by the government, that is a private company or a publicly traded.
You weren't saying that when you were telling all them Christians to bake that cake? That was their argument. You said it was irrelevant, but now it's against people you don't like, so it's all good. All right, okay.
Company, which means that the constitutional rights that are, that protect our free speech do not apply to this business, right? But they know that and they don't care. They
do.
Still make themselves out to be the oppressed ones. I've never seen Jordan Peterson or any other right winger who's constantly crying about being suspended from Twitter after very much intentionally violating their TOS say anything about the anti-BDS legislation that literally allows the government to punish people who engage in the boycott and divestment movement.
It's hypocritical.
For the Israeli government. They have no problem with that, even though, in my opinion, the government punishing you for your political speech is a violation of the First Amendment. They don't care about that.
She's right.
They're the real victims here. They're the real oppressed ones. You have another idiot like Dave Rubin jumping in on the grift. We'll get to him in a second. But first, I want to go to the next video because here's
anybody that disagrees with you, Anna, is an idiot.
Jordan Peterson saying he would rather die than delete the tweet that got him suspended.
Yeah, I know that was
in response to the decision of an actress ban.
That's pretty funny.
All abortions after 6 weeks.
Inshallah.
That 10-year-old
Inshallah.
Who was carrying a rapist child and was further victimized by the state, that's someone who's being oppressed. Jordan Peterson, I mean, he could barely even act, like he's acting throughout that video. What a clown. You are not a victim, you are not oppressed. Intentionally violating the terms of service for Twitter and then getting suspended as a result does not make you a martyr. It doesn't make you a victim. It makes you a massive, pathetic grifter. How much money is enough? I want to know. How much money is enough?
Oh my God.
And by the way, with all that money, you would think that this man would have, I don't know, the common sense to buy a suit that's not ill-fitting. But no,
I don't know. He looked pretty snazzy.
How Jordan Peterson would react? He'd be like, what is this? Like, no, nobody actually wants to be a victim. Being a victim sucks. It's terrible. You guys only like it because you're fake victims. It doesn't actually hurt you at all.
No.
And you say things like, oh, my First Amendment rights, because you know your followers aren't bright enough to understand the First Amendment.
Oh, is that what it is?
So but I have an easy solution to all of this. Peterson said, I'm not taking down that tweet or acknowledging that my tweet violated Twitter rules. Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who. Twitter's a rat hole in the final analysis.
Great, log off.
Right, that's it.
Log off, Grandpa.
No, but that's
log off.
No, we've already accomplished the mission. For the first time, we agree with Jordan Peterson, and not in his analysis of Twitter, but in that Twitter suspended you. You don't want to be on Twitter. Everybody's a winner.
Great.
Okay, great. Then why are you still crying?
Because it's his bread and butter.
Why are you still
That's
crying?
how he makes his money. Dave Rubin also got banned after he tweeted in defense of Jordan Peterson. The insanity continues at Twitter. Jordan Peterson has been suspended for his tweet about Ellen Page, again, dead naming Elliot Page. He just told me he will never delete that tweet. And then they always go cry to their, like little tattletales crying to their little daddy, Elon Musk, who can't do a damn thing because he hasn't purchased Twitter. And it's very likely he will renege on that deal. So paging Elon Musk, please daddy, please come to our defense.
Look,
anyway, he got suspended.
This is all very emotionally satisfying for Anna and the rest of them. But wait.
For that tweet, which, again, it's a violation of their terms of service. He knows it, but they love it. They love it every time they get suspended or banned. It's a perfect way to continue that grift.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Imagine if I told you guys, oh, Trump's platform, Truth Social. I went on there and then they banned me. I'm the victim. They're terrible. True Social is the worst site I've ever seen. I can't believe they won't let me on it. Boy. You'd be like, wait, Jake, that doesn't make any sense. You just said it was the worst site. Why are you complaining that they won't let you on it? Right? But for the right wing, they all find it totally normal. They're like, oh, yeah. We hate that thing, but we got to be on it because otherwise, how can we yell at liberals?
Oh, is that what they're doing?
And do the only thing that we care about.
They just want to yell at liberals?
Hating and oppressing other people.
Oh, okay. That's okay. So you could see all the glee there. It was very emotionally satisfying for these people to they're celebrating the takedown of Jordan Peterson. Dear listener, here is socialblade.com. Social Blade is a website that tracks YouTube channels and their growth and decline. Okay? All right. So here's Social Blade. I social bladed Jordan B. Peterson. Okay. Here are the stats. Jordan B. Peterson. Okay. This is YouTube. This is for YouTube. You'll notice here Thursday 10K. You know, they do reporting on basically a 5-6 day scale for subs. Views is different. You can see here 10K subs, 954,000 views in one day. 10K subs, 364 views. And then you get to, then you got 419,000 views here, 359,000 views here. And then you get to the day that Mr. Peterson shot that video after he got blitzed off Twitter. 296,926 views. The man, look, remember, 954, 818, 354, 364, 359. The day of the controversy, 2,296,962 views. Do you see that right there, dear listener? Do you see that right there? That's Jordan Peterson in all of his glory. So Jordan Peterson is an idiot. He's a grifter. He's dumb. Yada, yada, yada. Apparently, let me check. People are talking about the stream. Did the stream get suspended? That wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me in the least, considering these folks. Yeah. Let me see if let me see if YouTube shut down the stream. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise. Okay, so you see just fine. Okay. All right. So all right. So let's go back. So we were just talking about Jordan Peterson, how dumb he is, what a grifter he is. He's doing this for money, blah 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 blah. And we're gonna celebrate canceling Jordan Peterson. Yeah, the stream cut. I'm gonna put the date up again. Never you worry, guys. Never you worry. Here's let's go back. This is socialblade.com. Okay, and socialblade.com tracks the YouTube stats of whoever you want. So here's Jordan Peterson. Here's Jordan Peterson. Here are his stats, dear listener. You'll see here pretty much 10K. That's pretty much his average, 10,000 subs, right? And you see here 954,000 views, 818,000, 354,000, yada, 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 yada. The day of the controversy. The day of the controversy, dear listener. Look. 2,296,926 views. What happened? What happened? How did he go from 354, 364, 419, 359 to 2 million views? What happened on that day? Oh, that's right. Twitter deplatformed him. And then he went and shot that video. 2 million views. Look at the sub count. Look at the sub count, dear listener. He was trending at 10K, 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 20K, 20K. Next day, 2,879,000 views. Next day, 1 million views. Twitter deplatforming Jordan Peterson over that ridiculous tweet pushed everybody to his YouTube channel. And he literally doubled his sub count on average. I'm going to pull up the data again for you so we can continue to celebrate how dumb Jordan Peterson is, how dumb he is. Here are his daily averages. Social Blade does it on a 28-day clip. 4,000 subs on a daily average, 679,000 views on a daily average. But look at his weekly average, 28,000 subs, 4 million views. Now, you just increased Jordan Peterson's traffic by a mile. Now, dear listener, let me ask you a question. What is Jordan Peterson's bread and butter? Is it Twitter? Did Jordan Peterson shoot and skyrocket to fame because of his tweets? Dear listener, Jordan Peterson's main gift is his ability to speak long form, almost extemporaneously, and he is massively influential. Massively influential. Actually, Jordan Peterson's Twitter has actually been bad for him. I talked about this in the previous video where on Twitter, he said that thing about the girl, said she was, this is not beauty, blah, blah, blah. But of course, highlighting a woman and exposing her to public scorn and shame wasn't important to Twitter. That's okay. But as soon as you cross a trans person, you're going to get kicked out. And you guys are not seeing how that's going to engender some problem with women. But anyway, Jordan Peterson is horrible at Twitter. It hurts him. Even people that support him cringe at his Twitter. But he is masterful on YouTube when he speaks. Terrible at short form stuff, great in long form stuff. So let's pull back and see what Twitter accomplished. What the progressives at Twitter accomplished. What you accomplished was you doubled a guy who is completely and totally against everything you stand for, and you funneled literally millions of people to this man's channel where they can be exposed to his long form mesmerizing speech. Call him whatever you want. But just like Adolf Hitler, he's a massively mesmerizing speaker. That is his strength. That's what you just did. Meanwhile, Libs of TikTok is in full swing. Dear listener, don't you understand this is not even about money for these people? Jordan Peterson let it out of the bag when he said, we will see who cancels who. They did this for Rig called this out. Rig called this out in the comment section later on the Peterson video. They did that because it's a coordinated attack. They get themselves in trouble with Twitter. Then they make this big show of it. And then it gets them attention, and then they get to promote their propaganda. It's not about money. It's about political maneuvering. The Republicans the right wing is using media like insanely well. And people like TYT and the rest of you guys don't get it because we're so young and immature that we want the little endorphin shot because we get to say, we stuck it to that cis white male. Yeah, we deplatformed him. Excellent. Excellent. You just won that man thousands of new fans, and those fans are going to translate to voters. You just hurt yourself a lot. Jordan Peterson was self-destructing on Twitter. Even his own fan, even Michael Knowles, who works for the Daily Wire, was saying that he was wrong for what he said to that woman. The best thing for left-wing people is to keep Jordan Peterson on Twitter. But what did you do? You deplatformed him and you sent all those people to YouTube to check him out. Well done. It's because our movement, or progressives, are essentially millennials. And one of the drawbacks of youth is that youths want instant gratification, and young people are driven mostly by their emotions and not reason, logic, or strategy. And that's why we're going to lose in the very next future, maybe for the next decade. Now, the stream keeps dying. So You guys can do what you want with that or believe what you want about why this stream keeps dying. At this point, Vin, are you saying you're against right-leaning movements? I am against corporatism. I am pro-Medicare for all. I also am extremely concerned for my LGBT friends in my state currently. If you find out somebody's gay or trans, you can kick them out of you can evict them from their housing. You can terminate their employment. There's a lot of things that I'm concerned about, particularly for my LGBT folks, especially around here. We're working with a group. Housing is a major issue. And so I don't know what that makes me. What I do know is that I want people to be able to live and work in peace. And I don't see any reason why my LGBT folk, friends or otherwise, even though they're not my friends, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to live and work in peace, why they shouldn't be able to have basically guaranteed housing as long as you're being a good tenant and paying your rent and all the rest of it. I believe you should be able to feel pretty confident that you can live there. If you're a great worker and you're doing a good job, I believe you should be able to have that confidence that you're going to still be employed. So I don't know if that makes me right, left, Republican, whatever. I don't know. Mike says, I'm a conservative. That's messed up and should not be. They should absolutely be able to work in peace. Yeah. If you're a badass at work, you should be able to feel confident that your job is never going to be on the line because of who you are, who you love, how you dress, whatever. I believe the bathroom situation is massively complicated, not only because of the feelings of biological women, but also the fact that there are a lot of we all know that as far as pedophilia goes, heterosexuals lap LGBT people by like 5 million in a percentage wise. But here's one of my problems, because this literally happened. One of my little sisters called me up frantic, who was a sexual assault survivor. This actually happened. God strike me if I'm lying. And a dude, I'm not talking about a biological man in a dress who's trying to present as female. This was just a straight dude. Walked into the girls' bathroom at Walmart. Chloe says, you're in the wrong bathroom. He says, no, I'm not. I can be here. And then he stared at my sister. So she called me. And I called Walmart and I said, I explained what happened. I said, no. This is not a man in a dress. This was a guy in jeans and a t-shirt presenting completely as a male. And they told me there was nothing they could do because it was a new policy. Now, if that makes me right wing, left wing, homophobic, blah, 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 I don't care. But what if she didn't have me to call? Those are real issues. Those are real issues, man. Okay, so now I will leave the chat open. I'll put the clock on for 5 minutes, and if you disagree with any of my conclusions, you can call up and you can state your case. Because I think that Middle America shouldn't be an echo chamber. So if you have a position, I want to see your position. We've got 5 minutes. There's a ticker. I am going to put the chat. Now, 5 minutes just means you have 5 minutes to call in. It doesn't mean that you only have 5 minutes to talk. But I will put the link in the chat. And then if you want to call in, if you feel that anything I said was incorrect or the analysis was off, then by all means, call in. If nobody calls in by the 5 minute mark, that's okay too. We'll just call it a day. Remember, only call in if you disagree. If you don't disagree, you can't call in. I'm sorry, because I'm not trying to have an echo chamber here. We need some strident disagreement. If there's a hole in my logic, I want to know. So there's the link. So you guys have 5 minutes to call in if you desire to have a conversation. but it's got to be a disagreement because I've only been speaking my perspective. So if somebody has a different perspective, then we need to platform them as well and let them make their points as well. Okay? So don't worry, guys. One of these days I'll host a call-in show where everybody can call in and we can talk about stuff. But I felt like this was such a topic with so much gravity that it needed some real focused attention. So there's the link. If you have an issue, call in. I wasn't trying to make an argument of left versus right. I was merely asking would you disagree that society leaned too far left? Do I disagree that society has leaned too far left? Well, when I look at what we do economically, I don't see any leftist policy reflected in the economy. Roe v. Wade just got pushed back to the states, which triggered 13 states. And there's an estimate of 26 states, so half the country had already banned abortion. So I don't think that the country is leaning too far left. I think that there are certain leftists who have, because the left dominates on the social media space, and I say dominate in the sense that they're the ones that have, Twitter is a progressively owned outlet, et cetera, et cetera. Because of that, they have been able to make people pay some pretty severe costs for disagreeing with them. So it appears that the country's left, but I don't see how Donald Trump winning in 2016, Joe Biden winning in 2020, and presumably another hardcore Republican in 2024. I don't see how that comports to a left-leaning country. If the country was left-leaning, then Bernie Sanders wouldn't have so much of the BS that he normally has to deal with. Have you seen the cringe DSA meeting video? I don't think I have. What was the DSA meeting? The Democratic Socialists of America? No, I did not see that meeting. Rick, give me a Reader's Digest version of what happened at that meeting. We've seen the ends of it, man. Antifa, so Antifa, they just became fun. Yeah, I can't stand Antifa. I can't stand them at all. They're one of the groups that just frustrates me to no end. Antifa is another explanation for why, the progressive movement is going to be dead for another 10 years. I specifically said 10 years because that's how long I think it's going to take for all of us progressives to grow up. Because right now we're still millennials and we're still thinking like children instead of thinking like people who want to hold the reins of the most powerful country in the world history. We want that power, but we think we're going to get that power by acting childish, and that's not going to happen. Every speaker was interrupted by someone in the crowd whining about other people in the crowd. Oh my God. I don't even want to see it, Rig. I don't even want to see it. The reason I don't want to see it is because I guess they're the Democratic Socialists of America. Oh, wait a second. Rig, is that the one from like a couple years ago when the guy was like, comrades, please be quiet, or whatever it was? Yeah, it was horrible. Is that the one you're talking about, Rig? That one was... The reason that stuff bothers me, aside from what I just talked about in the video, is that I was introduced to socialism by folks in this channel. I was saying, oh, that's Marxism. I was throwing out this Marxist stuff, and people said, well, how much Marx have you actually read? And I had read no Marx. And so they said, well, how the hell can you comment on it if you've never read any of his source material? I was wrong. They're right. So I said, okay, I'll read some Marx. Send me some Marx. So I started reading Marx, started looking at the history, started seeing the amazing things that socialists and proto-socialists have done in this country, whether it's child labor laws, unionizing, that type of all those things. And when I saw how the capitalists were trying to keep little 8-year-old boys in the fucking mines, it changed my perspective a lot. And I wouldn't say I'm a full-blown socialist, but I'll tell you this, I am much more socialist and capitalistic. As a matter of fact, when I hear the term capitalism, it usually has a negative connotation for me right now. So when I see socialists being that fucking incompetent and childish, I don't want to see it. Because guys like Marx and the rest of them were serious, rugged operators, and they understood what was necessary to get to where we need to get to. So much so that in my view, it's clear Marx promoted violence against the bourgeoisie, and I would say we need to draw the line there. But the fact of the matter is, if you read the way Marx writes and you hear his voice, the brand of, quote, socialism or democratic socialism we have now is laughable. You guys, we are way too sensitive. We're soft, and people talk about the culture wars. We are at war. It's a psychological war, and we're losing badly. Badly. And we're too sensitive, and we're too soft. As I said, it was a trans black woman that threw the first brick at Stonewall. And this is why I'm saying the people in the background and the shadows, you know, Dick Cheney style, need to be seasoned, older operators who have been in civil rights wars before. It cannot be young, idealistic, postgraduate Berkeley students, white, curly-haired white boys that think they're going to rescue us from their parents and paternalistically go in there and do all this nonsense, and then when they get any sort of resistance, they melt into a puddle or try to get everybody that disagrees with them canceled. We need rugged people who are willing to live and die over this shit and who can get the community to stop being bitches and whining every single time somebody says something they don't like. And that's the reason why I'm going to post my, the thumbnail has got the girl from Handmaid's Tale on there. So I'm watching Handmaid's Tale, and I'm going to land the plane with this. I'm watching Handmaid's Tale almost religiously because all my female friends are talking about Handmaid's Tale relative to the Roe v. Wade stuff. So I'm like, you know what? Instead of rolling your eyes about what your sisters are talking about, maybe you should watch so that you can gain a more understanding of what's going on with them. Why? So you can use it politically? No, I just want to understand. Some of the people in this room I love very deeply, and they keep mentioning Gilead. So I said, if it's important to her, it's important to me. So I'm watching this show. And aside, number one, girls, I completely understand where you're coming from in the cognitive sense. I don't know what it's like to be you. I'm never going to claim it. I know what it's like to be you. We all know what it's like to be a baby, but we don't remember what it was like to be in the womb. But as far as the fear, the anxiety, and the Gileadic references, I completely see it. I understand it, and it's valid. It's a valid concern. I really believe that. But aside from that, you know what's very interesting to me about that show? Is the way that this woman brilliantly, from a position of complete submission and from a complete losing platform, the way this woman is able to operate from the bottom and use the few advantages she has to pull certain levers and manipulate situations to get her goals accomplished. That is the mindset that we need as leadership, as progressives. People who are used to that kind of situation. And I'm sorry, cis white males, you have not been in a situation where you've had to do that in this culture. So the leadership, the front-facing stuff needs to be cis white males because those are the people we need to vote for our policies. But in the background, the ultimate decision makers need to be seasoned people who know how to manipulate government. And right now, that's not happening in the progressive movement. Okay, who am I talking to right now?
What's going on, man?
Who's this?
This is Jay.
How you doing, buddy, with your Dino Cazares looking self? What you on?
Man, listen. I'm not breaking your rule. Listen, I'm gonna promise this, okay? I'm not breaking your rule. Like 95% of what you've said, I agree with, right? But I'm gonna give you the 5% because you said gotta have disagreements, right?
Okay.
I just don't. I don't agree with the part where you said. I just don't agree with the part where you say, or you disagree with most of capitalism. That's the part really I had a disagreement with.
Okay.
And the reason why is because the reason why I say that is because we've at least for my family, I'll use it as an example where at least with capitalism, so my family, we're not immigrants, we're emigrants. I'm actually Puerto Rican, and so is my family, right?
Mhm.
And we've been able to, ever since my grandmother was able to come off the boat since the 40s. My family has done nothing but work hard, work their asses off, and have been able to come from my family living in huts to us having living in nice houses. We have our own businesses, we invest, and that's all because of capitalism. I understand it's only an anecdotal perspective, but a lot of people say that capitalism is very exploitative, and I understand you gave the example when you were talking about Marx with capitalists wanting to take 8-year-old boys and keep them in mines.
Yeah.
The whole definition of capitalism is that it allows the private sector to control trade and free market, but that doesn't mean that the government can't regulate it. Regulation isn't the same as control.
Who would regulate that?
I'm sorry?
Who? You're saying the government can regulate it, but what if the capitalists buy the government? Then who's going to regulate it?
That's a fair point. That's a fair point, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I would say that happens a lot in our country. I would say that happens a lot. What I would say is that what's the point of having 3 layers of government that are supposed to be the checks and balances of one another if they can't find a way to mitigate that? I'm not gonna say stop it altogether. I don't believe that stopping it altogether is possible. I mean merely to mitigate that.
I don't believe you can have a true democracy in a capitalist environment for that very reason. I mean, we are so used to our politicians being bought, we don't even blink an eyelash. And think about this. Most people hold to progressive positions. Most people would say, yeah, Medicare for all. I mean, why not? That's immensely popular. Medicare for all is an immensely popular idea. Bernie's been pushing it for 40 years. How come it can't get any traction if the majority of Americans want it?
I would say for the reason, I'm gonna use myself as an example, and I'm probably gonna put a nice big target on my back. Personally, I don't want to pay the taxes for that. I don't want to pay obscene taxes. I mean, I'm not rich, but I
got you.
Money, and I pay my fair share in taxes. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with paying taxes because taxes are what help to pay for society. I'm not saying all of it does that. What I would say is it's like I already pay over 40% in taxes. You're saying now how much more in taxes do I have to pay? And I work easily 50, 60 hours a week.
Yep.
And it's not to mention doing my side hustles. That's not to mention me being an active investor. That's not to mention being around my family and helping them to grow as well.
Yeah.
That means I have to pay more. But I legitimately in my family we bust our asses to get to where we're at. And that's not. And understand this, yes. And we've had our falls where we had to live off government cheese and we had welfare. My family's had pitfalls where we've had to do that, but we still crawled out of the mud and were able to.
Yeah, but if you,
get back
how do you
think
think your family would have done without that social safety net of welfare? You think you guys would still be where you are?
Oh, to the point we're at now?
Yeah.
If we didn't have that leg up?
Mm-hmm.
We'd be scraping off the gutter. We'd probably still be fighting to this day.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
No, so your family benefited from a socialist program that the capitalists at the time wanted to eliminate.
I would say yes, they did. Yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to challenge you. By the way, Jay is a guitarist in my band, so he and I are brothers again outside of this place. So you benefited from a social safety net that got your family out of poverty, even though the capitalists at the time were like, "Look, I'm already paying too much in taxes." Right? Like the speech you just gave me about how hard your family worked is the exact same thing that they were saying about your family, right? Will you agree with that?
I would say so.
Okay.
I would say so.
So my perspective is, I'm also the beneficiary of that growing up, And so for me, I can't morally say, now there's this other social program that people desperately need, healthcare. I can't say, well, I pay too much in taxes and I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. I didn't pull myself up by my bootstraps. My mother, for a long time, was a single black woman, and many times we end up in a homeless shelter. And even in a homeless shelter, that was still a form of socialism, because the shelter was getting subsidies from the government to take care of us. And so for me, it would be the ultimate in hypocrisy for me to then say, I got here because I worked my ass off, even though, yeah, I did work my ass off, but I got help. And so now I'm in a position where I have the capital to do that for millions of other people. To me, I can't say that to them, because if somebody would have said that about me, I wouldn't have been here where I am right now. So that's one of the reasons I can't go there. And to me, again, that just demonstrates the evil to me of pure capitalism, because the pure capitalist would have had you and your family scraping the gutter, and you, instead of playing, being the best guitarist in our band, would be out in the field somewhere right now working slave labor for slave wages.
Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
I think no, just off topic, really, really quick. I think you got me confused with somebody else. Real quick.
Are you not Jay, my guitarist?
No, I'm not.
Oh, this is a different Jay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But you did get the point though, right?
No, I understand your point.
So how can you draw the line there? Don't you think that's convenient? Like, when the socialism worked for you and your family, it was good, but now it's time to help other people, and now you want to talk about your tax bracket. Don't you think that's a little?
I don't have a problem with helping other people.
No, particularly Medicare for all.
I don't have a problem with Medicare for all. I just think it's unrealistic because more people don't want to pay more, especially now.
Right. You brought up yourself though, right?
I did. I used myself and my family as an example. Yes, I did.
Right. So what I'm saying is, how do you reconcile? Do you see that as hypocritical? Like, your family benefited from a social program, so you're at a place now where you've worked your ass off, absolutely, and you earned your money. But now you're saying that you don't want to pay extra taxes to help other people.
That's almost like saying.
Don't you think that's hypocritical?
To say to have to pay more in taxes to help others?
Well, since you benefited from a social program that got you out of the muck and mire, but now that you're out of the muck and mire, there's other people in the muck and mire that are in actually a more stringent financial situation than your family was, considering inflation and what the healthcare industry has done. They're in actual worse situation than your family was, but now you're talking about you don't want the extra taxes. Do you see that as like cognitively a problem or no?
I can see where you're coming from. No,
okay.
I see where you're coming from. But what I'm saying is that if those kind of programs were put in place, I would still be able to benefit from them. I would still be able to benefit if you had Medicare for all. I would, if I'm paying into it, I would still be able to benefit from it. I would, but I had to pay more in taxes for something that I could get on my own.
And people had to pay more in taxes for you though, and your family.
That's just okay. Yeah. That's a fair point. All right, that's a fair point.
And they didn't benefit at all. Whereas if you paid for Medicare for all, to your point, you would still have some sort of benefit. People that were paying welfare got no benefit at all. They just helped you. Right?
That's a fair point. I would say that is a fair point.
Okay, so then explain to me how that's justifiable to you. Or is that something you haven't really connected before?
I'd probably say I didn't connect those dots before, and I'd probably say you got me in a box.
Okay.
I would say you got me in a box. Okay.
Well, look. Aside from this bullshit, now we're actually friends, right? Aside from this bull, I mean, I don't care about making points, right? The point is, like, these are questions that were asked of me a couple years ago from people in this forum, right? What I said to them was, to your point, I didn't connect those dots. Let me think that through. And my position slowly evolved. I think if me and you were talking, right, and it completely changed your mind in a 5-minute conversation, I'd be like, well, that dude's unstable, right? So, like, I'm glad that you're saying, okay, I see where you're at. Like, that makes sense. Let me think about it. Like, that's the posture we all need to have, everybody, right? Like, so I just wanted to give you your flowers for being so honest on the discussion.
What I would say, just to nuance the point though, there is a big difference between giving out a helping hand, which I don't have a
Yes.
problem with,
Yes.
and someone who literally is a dreg to society,
Gaming the
and
system.
literally chooses to be that.
100%.
And while also using the same anecdotal example, I have family members themselves who still choose to do that to this day,
Jesus.
knowing that they could get the helping hand and get out of that situation. So I just because I feel like without being able to have access to a capitalistic society, we would not have been able to reach the level where we're at. Is my point, where we have the comforts that we do, and I give the opportunities to our children that they never have to worry about dealing with those kind of situations. Because you never want your children to have to worry about that. You never want them to have to experience that.
Yeah. I agree. I will say though, you're 100% right about that. I will say though, I became politically sort of aware during the Clinton run. And, the whole, it's the economy, stupid, all that jazz. And that was a major conversation. They were talking about welfare reform, and they were talking about people gaming the system. How does a person game the system when it comes to healthcare, though? Like, I can see the stereotypical, mom with the 9 baby daddies or whatever, gaming welfare, which your family benefited from. But how does a person game the system when you're talking about Medicare for all?
I honestly couldn't answer that question, and I'm not going to try and sit here and try to finagle a way to do that.
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily pointing at welfare for all. The nuance I was trying to make was about just how you made the mention of capitalism you made the mention about the 8-year-old kid in the mind with capitalism and how you had more Marxist ideas, and I disagree with the fact that capitalism is such an issue. As far as welfare for all,
it was the Marxists. It was the Marxists that got those kids out of the mines, though. The Marxists did that.
I'm not going to try and act like I know about Marxism.
Well, they organized and helped draft legislation to get that done.
As far as labor laws?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. A lot of those guys were influenced by Marx. MLK was influenced by Marx heavily, Malcolm, et cetera, et cetera. So, as a matter of fact, when Mr. Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln and Marx used to trade letters with each other, and Marx was the one that sent him a congratulations when the South finally surrendered. So, yeah. So Marx, as I said, there are things in his writings that left the door open for violence, and we saw how that metastasized in the 30s through the 60s, right? So we have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, the effect Marx has had, particularly on this country, has really been a lifesaver, because if we didn't have those laws, bro, you and I would be in a permanent slave class. If we didn't have some social program to give you guys a heads up so that when you work your ass off, you could actually have a chance to be where you're at now, a lot of that is attributed to Marxian thought. And a lot of the things that you're saying right now is what the capitalists were saying in the 90s, specifically about your family.
I would say that's a fair point. I say that's a fair point. All right, one I should do more research and understanding on. I wouldn't push back on that.
Yeah, but that's the entire point of the discussion, right? Like, nobody's trying to get anybody. Like, these are really complex issues. I think, me personally, I don't think that we have found the right just or an economic system of justice. I think that both capitalism and communism, or whatever form, could work if people were not selfish. I think we've got to find a way to
fighting human nature. You can't really fight human nature. I know humans on the whole can expand their consciousness and become more based and understand more about themselves and about others. But ultimately, we still have our
sinful nature. Yeah, we're selfish, right? And what I'm saying is, well, we kind of did that, right? That's the entire reason we have checks and balances in the government, because we're assuming the sinful nature of people in government. So we're saying we can't give somebody too much power because then they're going to get corrupted, right? So the entire reason we have a checks and balances system in our jurisprudence and all the rest of it is to account for our sinful natures. What I'm saying is we need an economic model that has checks and balances that accounts for human selfishness. And I don't think that socialism or capitalism has hit that bar in the middle yet. And so for me, right now, I think a just economy, until we get a brilliant person to figure it out, I think a just economy is a combination of work your ass off And if things outside of your control fuck you up, we have a social safety net, whether it be welfare or Medicare for all. We're not going to make you lose your entire life savings that you worked so hard for because you got sick. And I just think that if we had an economic strategy that took into account that, we'd be in much better shape, I think.
So you wouldn't say then that our country is purely a capitalist society then?
I mean, we've got Social
Right
Security. No, we don't. No, it's not a pure capitalist society. But what I will say is that it is dominated by capitalists because of their proximity to politicians and their ability to buy them. So it's not. It's dominated by capitalists who are a very small minority because they're able to buy politicians to get what they want.
So you would disagree? Would you disagree with the idea that because of the style of society of capitalism, that it's been able to cause our world to progress farther than at any other point in human civilization?
Well, I think in order to say that, you have to ignore the fact that the American economy was built on slave labor. That you had 400 years plus in your your P&L, your profit and loss, where you have generated a bunch of income, but you have little or no expenses, right? And so that's one side of it. Then after that, we had Jim Crow laws, and the 13th Amendment specifically states we can't have slavery unless you're incarcerated. So now we've got a whole bunch of people incarcerated, and Kamala Harris, perfect example, where they were saying we need to let these nonviolent offenders go, and she said, "How are we going to do that? These guys are fighting fires for us at $1 a day." And so we've changed the slave market from the plantation to the jailhouse. And you got Apple, Victoria's Secret. You have a lot of these companies that use prison labor to generate their revenue. So my issue is, I keep hearing that about how capitalism has advanced us more than everybody, but there's never been a time in a successful capitalist economy where there hasn't been a slave class. So it was Native Americans and African Americans, then it was the 8-year-old breaker boys in the mines, and now it's people in prisons. You always need, and sweatshops, right? There's always a slave class to uphold capitalism. So I understand.
Honestly, I'm going to go against my own point. I'm going to go against my own point because my grandmother, when she not immigrated, everyone says, "Well, you immigrated." No, we emigrated. There's a difference.
Yes, there is. There absolutely is. Yeah.
Because when she first moved to New York, that's what she had to do, was to do sewing by hand.
Yeah.
She sewed by hand for 12 hours a day, easy, and then washed clothes for another 6 hours. So
unbelievable.
To go against my own point, like she would work her. When she was alive, she worked her fingers to the bone.
But the thing is, I mean, let's isolate child labor for a second. Let's think this through. I own a mine. I've got a family of people who are working for me. The kid, there's no child labor law, so the kid can work in the mine, right? So the kid's working in the mine, and he's getting 32 cents a week or some ridiculous thing like that, right? So he's got no opportunity to educate himself and be upwardly mobile. He's going to stay that way for the rest of his life, right? Because he can't educate himself to get out of there. So then when he has kids, now he's got another mouth to feed. So he's going to wait till that kid's 8th birthday party, and that kid's going to go down in the mines too. And if those child labor laws don't get enacted, we would have a literal slave class of people who that's all they do, because that's all the society is set up for, because the entire economy now was built on the back of this slave labor.
Right. So you're essentially saying we have an American caste system.
That's the world that capitalists want. And so what ended up happening was, because of child labor laws, what did we do? We said, oh yeah, that's terrible, we can't do that. So then we outsourced the child labor to the Philippines and the sweatshops in China, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a slave class to uphold capitalism, whether it's children, prisoners, Native American people, African American people. It really doesn't matter, red, yellow, black, or white. It doesn't matter. The capitalists always need a slave class to uphold the system. What would happen to our economy if Apple stopped patronizing China and stopped using prison? How much do you think this phone would be? If they stopped using exactly, so we're still benefiting off of slave labor.
Okay. I'm seeing. I see your point.
So that system, that system needs to die. Now, at the same time, you're talking to a guy who has multiple small businesses, and one of them, which as soon as I get one more email from the FDA, it's about to blow up and do something crazy, right? So I am not against the spirit of entrepreneurship and things of that nature, but you know, there are self-made millionaires in places like the UK, which is essentially a socialist. There's millionaires in the UK. There's millionaires from Jamaica, where I was born. So it's not as if you cannot become extremely successful in a socialist milieu. It's just we're doing in my mind, we should do our best to eliminate as much slave labor as possible.
I would say that I think the biggest knock against that, though, the biggest knock against why people can't see that is because they have such a recent example when they look at the Soviet Union when it existed.
Fair.
When they look at communism in its rawest form, you look at, I mean, China is still a communist country. You'd see most parts of China and say that that's a second world country, and which will soon be the number one economy on the planet. You know, you would look at those examples of communism and you would say, wow, we see communism and society can become nightmarish as a result. Where, yes, and I will say that you have parts of the United States which look very run down. I mean, Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water. There are still people in New Orleans who are still living in rundown FEMA houses. You still have tons of homeless people who live on the streets of LA and Seattle, Washington, who, you know, they defecate in the streets and don't think a single thing about it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, though, is that you see those modern examples, and for them, they look at that and they think it's nightmarish. Whereas what you see here in this country, they're isolated. Not to say that doesn't make it right.
No, you're right. No, you're absolutely. The Democratic Party, who runs LA, they're a joke and they're a disaster. And I would argue it's because they will not commit to socialism. They're doing this sort of like middle of the road thing, and that's not going to work. But I look, I really appreciate this. Hey, do you mind if I clip this and have it be its own video? Is that cool?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. Thank you.
I really appreciate your channel. You're good. You're good.
I appreciate you, Jay. I really, really do. Thank you very much, man. I'm going to let you have the last word, and then I got to get out of here because my girl's calling me.
Nah, man, you're good, man. Listen, I appreciate you having me on. Listen, I look forward to your next show. Thanks for having me. Awesome.
All right, everybody. That was Jay. Type 22 to support the big homie Jay. Middle America is not an echo chamber, you losers. We can disagree agreeably, like me and my brother Jay just did. Okay? So that's how we need to do it. He made points. I made points. He listened to me. I listened to him. We didn't interrupt each other. Nobody hates anybody. I didn't call him a filthy pig. He didn't call me a commie pinko, whatever. That's how it's supposed to go, people. By the way, guys, stay tuned. The big homie Rig Vertigo and I are going to do a panel discussion on hate crimes, hate speech, and how to balance that with a bunch of things. So Rig is on the way, one of my good friends on the channel as well. Much love to all you beautiful people. Guys, I understand that there was a mass shooting and things like that. As a rule, I'm generally not going to cover those. Yeah, I'm not going to cover those. But I know it's there, and it is important to me. But I'm not covering those. Okay, guys. Much love to all you guys. Have a good one. Love all of you guys. Please stay safe. Okay? I say this all the time, and I hate to say it, but if you're going to Walmart, guys, just go in and out. Okay? Don't dilly-dally, and don't have your headphones in your heads listening to Middle America. Fucking be aware of your surroundings, please. Okay? And get home to your families and the people that love you. All right, guys? So I love you all, and try to stay safe, huh? All right, Vin out. Outro. Okay, it's not working.